What if I told you your quiet suburban neighbor, the one mowing his lawn and waving hello, might not be human at all? In 1985, Fright Night pulled back the curtains of suburbia and revealed something ancient, seductive, and deadly. Tonight, we're digging into the vampire origins of Fright Night. Not just the story of Jerry Dandridge, the charming neighbor who hides a monstrous secret, but the roots of his powers, the folklore that shaped them, and the real history that turned this cult film into one of the most important vampire stories of the 1980s. By the end, you'll see why Fright Night isn't just another horror movie. It's a modern vampire handbook. The story begins with Charlie Brewster, your typical teenager. He spies on his new neighbor, Jerry Dandridge, only to discover something impossible. Jerry is a vampire. This setup sounds simple, but it hides centuries of vampire lore. Vampires have always been outsiders, creatures lurking on the edge of villages, castles on lonely hills. Fright Night takes that gothic trope and drops it right into 1980s suburbia. Instead of a Transylvanian castle, Jerry lives in a nice house with a freshly painted fence. The fear here isn't distant, it's across the street. This was the genius of Fright Night, bringing the old legends into a place we thought was safe. So, what lore does Fright Night actually use? Almost all of it. Let's break it down. The invitation rule. In Slavic folklore, a vampire cannot enter your home unless invited. Jerry proves this true. He strolls right into Charlie's house only after his mom invites him in. Seductive charm. For centuries, vampires symbolized forbidden lust and temptation. Jerry seduces Amy in the nightclub with hypnotic power, echoing Dracula's pull over women. Bats and monsters. Stoker's Dracula tied vampires to bats, and folklore linked them to shapeshifting. Jerry transforms into a monstrous bat, carrying that tradition forward. Crosses and faith. Christianity influenced vampire legends heavily. Crosses, holy water, and sacred relics repel or harm them. But crosses only work if you believe. When Peter Vincent holds a cross without faith, Jerry laughs in his face. Stake through the heart. One of the oldest and most universal vampire killing methods in Slavic, Romanian, and Balkan traditions. The wooden stake was seen as pinning the vampire's body to the earth. Charlie and Peter used this exact method in the climax. The sunlight curse. Earlier folklore often had vampires active both day and night, but German expressionist cinema like Nosferatu cemented the idea that sunlight destroys them. And in the end, Jerry burns alive when exposed to dawn light. Mirror reflection. Vampires often lack reflections, tied to the idea they have no soul. This motif appears in Bram Stoker's Dracula and became a staple in cinema. Charlie discovers Jerry's true nature when he notices Jerry casts no reflection, the familiar. Folklore and fiction often describe vampires having mortal or semi-supernatural servants, like Renfield in Dracula. Jerry has Billy Cole, his humanoid protector, who hides his coffin and defends him. Shape-shifting powers. Folklore grants vampires the ability to transform into wolves, mist, or bats. Jerry demonstrates shape-shifting, most dramatically, into a monstrous bat creature during the climax. Even Evil Ed, during his assault on Peter's shapeshift into a wolf. Fright Night didn't just borrow from folklore. It gathered the greatest hits of vampire mythology and stitched them into one terrifying story. Here's the problem. Jerry isn't just a random vampire. He's the master vampire. But who or what is he really? Jerry descended from fruit bats, which explains why he's always eating apples and why the fruit bowl is always stocked up. His house is filled with antiques. His confidence is absolute. His powers too advanced for a new vampire. Jerry is centuries old. He is a European immigrant vampire who came to America long ago. We encounter his sister, Regine, in the sequel, who claims her brother was over 1,000 years old, meaning he predates Dracula, Nosferatu, and all other well-known vampire legends. So was Jerry the first vampire? But Jerry wasn't alone. His helpers add new layers of mystery. Billy Cole, the Renfield of Fright Night. When killed, he melts into green goo. Is he a ghoul, a revenant, half vampire? At first glance, Billy looks human. He's Jerry's housemate, his day protector, and his muscle. But when you dig deeper, the truth becomes far more unsettling. Billy walks freely in the daylight. He's not a vampire, yet he's far stronger than any human should be, tossing Charlie Brewster around like a rag doll. And then there's his death scene. When Peter Vincent shoots him, Billy doesn't die like a man. He melts into a pool of sickly green goo, his skin collapsing, his body dissolving into something that was never really flesh at all. This moment leaves us with a haunting question. What was Billy Cole? He was a revenant, an unfinished undead. Unlike a full vampire, it's a body animated by something unnatural. Billy's goo-filled corpse feels like a construct, a shell held together by dark magic, only to collapse once Jerry's power is broken. Then there is Evil Ed. Charlie's best friend becomes Jerry's victim, transformed into a vampire. His death is filmed ambiguously, with a final scream suggesting he might not be gone forever. But where is Ed now? And Jerry? He stands as one of the most iconic vampires in film history. He's Dracula without the name. Nosferatu with style. A master vampire whose true origin will be uncovered right here on Horror Unfold. So let's put it all together. Fright Night is more than just a horror movie. It's a modern vampire grimoire. Every rule, every myth, from invitations to mirrors, from stakes to sunlight, is alive in Jerry Dandridge. But instead of a dusty castle, the evil lives next door. The mystery of who Jerry truly is keeps the film timeless. He's not Dracula, he's not Nosferatu. He's something in between, an ancient predator hiding in plain sight. If you thought Jerry Dandridge was terrifying, wait until you see the hidden vampire origins of the Lost Boys. Click the video on screen. What if I told you the charming neighbor next door wasn't just a vampire, but a 500-year-old predator tied to Dracula himself? In the world of horror, Jerry Dandridge from Fright Night isn't just another creature of the night. He's one of the most mysterious, seductive, and dangerous vampires ever put on screen. But beneath the smooth smile and suburban charm hides a blood-soaked past stretching back to medieval Europe. A story of betrayal, tragedy, and eternal hunger. Today, we'll dig deep into Jerry's vampire origins, his sister Regine, his monstrous powers, and the secret lore that makes him far more terrifying than the movie ever showed you. Long before Jerry Dandridge was stalking American suburbs, he was born as Gellert Selcatura in the late 1400s. He came from the Hungary, Bohemia, and Romania region. the same soil that gave birth to Vlad the Impaler, the man behind Dracula. Gellert was the eldest son of Janos Bashara, a nobleman's second son. Because his father was never meant to inherit lands, Gellert was sent to a monastery to serve the church. His future was meant to be holy, not unholy. But fate is cruel. His uncle fell ill, his father was forced to take charge of the family, and Gellert was pulled from the monastery and pushed into noble life. He quickly married Maria of Lipani, a distant cousin of King Matthias of Hungary. For a short time, he lived a happy, human life. In 1476, everything shattered. Gellert was called to battle when King Matthias summoned his nobles to defend against the Turks. On the battlefield, he fought alongside Vlad II of Wallachia, Vlad the Impaler. Gellert wanted peace. Vlad wanted blood. That difference made him a target. When Gellert returned home, he found only fire, corpses, and impaled bodies, Vlad's calling card. Worst of all, Maria and her servants had taken their own lives, believing rescue would never come. With his faith broken and his soul hollowed, Gellert cursed God, and in his darkest hour he was turned into a vampire. Vlad's very first victim. Gellert stayed in Romania for centuries, building a coven across Europe, spreading death and infection. Over time, his coven was destroyed, leaving only him and his sister, Regine. To survive, he adapted, hiding in plain sight. By the time he crossed the ocean to America, he had reinvented himself as Jerry Dandridge, the picture of the quiet, attractive suburban neighbor. But make no mistake, Jerry wasn't running from the past. He was bringing it with him. In Rancho Corvallis, Jerry targeted young, beautiful women. But he wasn't just feeding. He was also decapitating his victims after death, making sure they couldn't rise again. This detail reveals how much Jerry understood vampire infection, and how ruthless he was in keeping his existence secret. When teenager Charlie Brewster discovered the truth, nobody believed him. Not his girlfriend Amy, not his best friend Evil Ed, not even Peter Vincent, a washed-up TV horror host. But Jerry knew the danger. He visited Charlie at home, welcomed in by Charlie's mother, and whispered a chilling promise. Keep quiet or die. Jerry was no ordinary vampire. His fruit bat origins gave him strange abilities, shape-shifting into a wolf-like beast and a grotesque bat creature, a hypnotic aura, almost like pheromones that pulled women toward him, strength and speed far beyond humans, an almost playful cruelty, enjoying the chase more than the kill. But he also had weaknesses. A stake could wound him, holy symbols burned him, and sunlight, for most of his life, was deadly. But Jerry wasn't the only predator in the family. His sister, Regine Dandridge, appears in Fright Night Part 2. Regine was a powerful vampire in her own right, with unique gifts Jerry never had. She had the ability to shapeshift into mist, and unlike her brother, she leaned into theatrical, cruel games. After Jerry's death, she swore revenge, bringing a group of supernatural allies to hunt Charlie and Peter Vincent. Regine shows us that the Dandrige line wasn't a fluke. It was a bloodline meant to dominate. Jerry's story didn't end in a suburban basement. After his death, a secret vampire society known as the Legion of the Endless Night gathered his ashes, determined to bring him back. Through witchcraft and dark rituals, Jerry's soul was transplanted into a new body. the NBA player Moose Wilson. This strange resurrection briefly gave him immunity to sunlight, a power the Legion wanted to control. But Jerry's hunger for dominance never stopped. He fled to Paris, started a new coven, and continued spreading vampirism. Even Evil Ed, once his victim, returned to try and end him for good. What makes Jerry so terrifying isn't just his powers, it's the mask. He looks human, speaks kindly, charms everyone, even as he's planning to feed on them. His obsession with Amy wasn't random. Many believe she resembled his long-dead wife, Maria, the only woman he ever truly loved. Seducing her was his way of rewriting his own tragedy. Jerry isn't just a monster, he's a broken man who turned his heartbreak into endless violence. Jerry Dandridge is more than a suburban vampire. He's a medieval noble, a betrayed husband, a brother tied to an eternal bloodline, and a predator who kept adapting across centuries. His story connects to Vlad the Impaler, his sister Regine, and even secret vampire societies. He's not just Fright Night's villain, he's one of horror's most complex creations. If you thought Jerry's origins were dark, wait until you see the hidden vampire ties behind Peter Pan's Lost Boys. Watch that next. They say Jerry Dandridge was over 1,000 years old. But what if I told you he wasn't the only one in his family cursed with bloodlust? In Fright Night, Jerry Dandridge looked like the perfect suburban neighbor. Smooth, charming, almost too normal. But behind that smile was a predator, older than the town itself. What many forget is that Jerry wasn't alone. His sister Regine carried the same curse, and her story reveals just how deep the Dandridge bloodline runs. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the true vampire origins of Jerry and Regine Dandridge. Where they came from, what their powers mean, and why their family might be hiding one of the oldest curses in vampire history. Jerry Dandridge wasn't just another movie vampire. He was different. Jerry was over 1,000 years old. That makes him older than the Crusades, older than the Black Death, older than the countries we know today. His style, his mannerisms, his confidence, they weren't things you learn overnight. They were sharpened through centuries of survival. Unlike fledgling vampires who hunt in desperation, Jerry blended in. He played the role of the perfect neighbor, the man you'd trust, right before he drained you dry. Think about it. A predator that's lived through plagues, wars, empires rising and falling, hiding in plain sight among humans. Jerry wasn't a monster who lurked in caves. He thrived in cities. In Jerry's house there's a painting, a woman who looks almost exactly like Amy, Charlie's girlfriend. The image left an open wound in Jerry's immortal life, and it made him see Amy as something more than prey. To him, she was a reincarnation, a way to relive what he had lost. When Jerry was killed, most thought the nightmare ended. But Fright Night, Part 2 revealed the truth. Jerry had a sister. Regine Dandridge wasn't just another vampire. She was his equal. If Jerry was the predator in the suburbs, Regine was the vampire of the city. An actress, a socialite, someone who thrived in the spotlight. Where Jerry hid, Regine performed. Where Jerry charmed, Regine seduced. She arrived in Charlie's life not just to feed, but to avenge Jerry's death. To her, it wasn't just blood. It was family honor. Here's the terrifying truth. Jerry and Regine Dandridge weren't just long-lived vampires. They were heirs of one of the first vampire dynasties, a bloodline stretching back thousands of years. Their immortality wasn't an accident, and it wasn't something they earned. It was born into their veins, a legacy tied to dark rituals, ancient predators, and a queen older than recorded history. The story begins with the fruit bat, a creature long associated with the night and blood. Legends claim that the earliest Dandrige ancestor drank from a sacred bat during a forbidden ritual, fusing human blood with the predator instincts. This act didn't just grant immortality, it awakened a hunger that would echo through every generation. The fruit bat became a symbol of both power and curse, linking the Dandrige family to something older than mortal memory. Over time, the bloodline grew in both cunning and cruelty, but their origins weren't just tied to nature. The Dandrige family were descendants of a primordial queen, sometimes whispered about in ancient texts as Akasha, the first true vampire. She ruled over the earliest vampires, teaching them to walk among mortals, to seduce, manipulate, and survive for centuries. Jerry and Regine inherited not only her blood but her cunning and authority, making them living heirs of a royal vampire lineage. Jerry, now over 1,000 years old, survived when countless others perished, through plagues, wars, and empires rising and falling. His centuries of survival weren't just instinct. They were the refinement of a predator perfected by time, a direct reflection of Akasha's ancient legacy. Regine, his sister, carries the same curse and the same royal power, demonstrating that this bloodline wasn't just surviving. It was enduring, dominating, and primed to outlive all human history. Every bite, every seduction, every whispered threat from the Dandrige siblings is more than predation. It's the echo of an ancient dynasty, a reminder that their bloodline was forged at the dawn of vampirism itself, tied to the fruit bat, consecrated by ritual and sanctioned by the queen of the damned herself. Regine wasn't just a copy of Jerry. She was something far older, far more powerful, the embodiment of the ancient queen, Akasha herself. Where Jerry operated in shadows, Regine carried the presence of royalty, commanding respect, fear, and loyalty from all creatures of the night. She could bend others to her will, not just vampires, but werewolves, ghouls, and other dark beings, as if the centuries of her bloodline had granted her dominion over all who walked under the moon. Unlike Jerry, who hunted silently, Regine didn't need to sneak. She built entourages of the damned, orchestrating terror like a sovereign commanding her court. Her every move was deliberate, her every appearance a statement of vampire royalty restored. Her vengeance against Charlie wasn't merely personal revenge. It was symbolic, a message from the primordial bloodline. The Dandrige legacy could not be destroyed. Even if 1,000 years of cunning fell in one night, the line endured, embodied now in Regine's indomitable will. If Jerry was the shadow slipping through your windows at night, Regine was the storm that tore through the world in plain sight. Magnificent, terrifying, and unstoppable. She wasn't just a predator. She was the living echo of Akasha's power, a queen who had inherited centuries of blood, cunning, and dominion over the night itself. Every whispered command, every calculated seduction, every flicker of her presence reminded mortals and monsters alike. Regine Dandridge is not merely a vampire, she is vampire royalty, the culmination of 1,000 years of dark evolution. Both Jerry and Regine weren't just long-lived vampires. They were living remnants of a royal bloodline that predates human history. They weren't modern movie monsters. Their traits echoed the primordial vampires of legend, the first creatures to walk the night under the guidance of the ancient queen, Akasha. Their abilities went beyond ordinary vampirism, the power to shapeshift, to move unseen, and to influence other dark creatures. Just as Akasha herself commanded the first generation of vampires. Their obsession with family, legacy, and reincarnation wasn't mere sentiment. It was encoded in their bloodline, a reflection of centuries of survival and rule. Their hunger was never just for blood. It was a hunger for control, dominance, and the preservation of their dynasty. Every life taken, every human manipulated, was a reminder that the Dandrige line was more than predation. It was power incarnate. Together, Jerry and Regine painted vampirism not as fleeting horror but as eternal sovereignty. Vampires didn't just survive, they ruled, adapted, and endured through time. When Jerry fell, Regine rose, the embodiment of Akasha's legacy, carrying the weight, cunning, and authority of a 1,000-year-old queen. Even if Regine were defeated, the lineage hinted at a far larger network. Other Dandrige heirs scattered across the globe, waiting in the shadows. The films never tell us their full story, but the evidence suggests something far more terrifying than a single vampire or even a pair. The Dandrige bloodline is a dynasty of the night, a family curse and inheritance that stretches across centuries, civilizations, and perhaps even millennia, always waiting to reclaim its dominion. Jerry and Regine Dandridge weren't just horror movie villains. They were symbols of something older, darker, and more terrifying. 1,000 years of bloodshed, bound not just by hunger, but by family. The Dandridge siblings prove one thing: vampires don't die with a single stake. They live on in blood, in memory, and in the shadows we're too afraid to search. If you thought the Dandridge siblings were terrifying, wait until you see the true vampire origins of Peter Pan's Lost Boys. Click the video on screen. Charlie Brewster didn't hunt monsters because he was brave. He did it because no one believed him, and the thing next door was already feeding. Charlie Brewster looks like every normal suburban teen from the 1980s. A girlfriend, a beat-up car, too many horror movies. But by the end of Fright Night, Charlie isn't just a witness to evil. He's a survivor who keeps being pulled back into the dark. Tonight, we're breaking down who Charlie was before the vampires, how he survived Fright Night 1 and 2, and why he teams up with Peter Vincent after the movies to keep fighting what refuses to stay dead. Charlie Brewster grows up in quiet suburbia. He lives with his single mother, Judy Brewster, in Rancho Corvallis, Iowa. Nothing strange, nothing dangerous. Just another kid in another safe-looking neighborhood. But Charlie has one problem. He watches too many horror movies. Not casually, obsessively. He knows vampire rules the way other kids know football stats. No reflections. Can't cross thresholds uninvited. Sunlight kills. At school, Charlie dates Amy Peterson and hangs out with his best friend, evil Ed Thompson. To everyone else, Charlie seems paranoid, jumpier than normal, always looking over his shoulder. Because Charlie doesn't just watch monsters. He waits for them. And one night, he sees something he can't unsee. A new neighbor moves in. Jerry Dandridge. Polite, calm, charming, and never seen during the day. Charlie watches through his bedroom window and realizes something is very wrong. Strange deliveries at night, screams, shadows moving where they shouldn't. Charlie does what every horror fan would do. He connects the dots. Jerry Dandridge is a vampire, and nobody believes him. The police laugh it off. Amy thinks he's losing his mind. Evil Ed mocks him. So Charlie turns to the only man who might understand, Peter Vincent, a washed-up TV horror host who used to play a vampire hunter. Peter laughs too, until he sees Jerry up close. No reflection. That's when the joke ends. Jerry strikes back hard. Evil Ed is turned into a vampire. Amy is kidnapped. Jerry's servant, Billy Cole, beats Charlie unconscious. This is where Charlie changes. He stops being a scared kid and becomes a fighter. With Peter's help, Billy Cole is killed. Jerry Dandridge is exposed to sunlight. The vampire is destroyed. Charlie wins. But winning doesn't mean healing. Surviving a vampire doesn't make life better. It makes it heavier. Charlie leaves high school behind and goes to college. He breaks up with Amy and starts dating Alex Young. And then something dangerous happens. Charlie stops believing. Not because it didn't happen, but because believing hurts too much. He sees a psychologist. He convinces himself it was stress, fear, a breakdown. But monsters don't care what you believe. Jerry Dandridge had family, and she's coming. Regine Dandridge arrives quietly, beautiful, calm, patient. She doesn't rush Charlie. She lets him doubt himself. Charlie starts having nightmares, dreams where Regine watches him sleep. He tells Peter something feels wrong. Peter tries to warn him. Charlie doesn't listen. Then it escalates. A vampire attack at the campus library. Charlie and Alex are arrested. Regine pays Charlie's bail. That's the trap. She takes Charlie to her apartment and reveals the truth. She doesn't want to kill him. She wants to break him. Regine partially turns Charlie into a vampire and plans to make him feed on Alex to finish the change. Charlie resists. Peter and Alex intervene, but not without loss. Regine murders Richie, someone close to Charlie, to punish him. In the final confrontation, Regine nearly succeeds. Charlie is seconds away from becoming what he hates. At the last moment, he breaks free. With Peter's help, Regine is exposed to sunlight and destroyed. Again, Charlie survives. Again. But this time, something is different. By the end of Fright Night, Part 2, Charlie understands the truth. You don't walk away from monsters. They follow. He's seen vampires twice. Lost friends. Nearly became one himself. Going back to a normal life isn't possible anymore. And Peter Vincent knows it. Peter isn't just an actor anymore. He's been in real fights, real danger. So instead of pretending everything is fine, they make a choice. Charlie and Peter stay together. Not as heroes, as survivors who know too much. They don't stop after Jerry and Regine. They continue fighting supernatural threats, vampires, occult killers, creatures hiding behind normal faces. Charlie Brewster and Peter Vincent are pulled into a far wider, darker war, one that proves vampires were only the beginning. First came the Spider Boy. a twisted half-human creature stitched together by dark experiments. Not fully monster, not fully human. It moved through walls and ceilings, hunting like an animal, thinking like a child. Charlie learned that some horrors aren't born, they're made. Then came the brain bats, small flying parasites that didn't feed on blood. They fed on thoughts. They invaded the mind, drained memories, twisted fear into obedience. Charlie couldn't fight them with stakes or crosses, only willpower and the fear of losing himself. Then came the squid men, eldritch things pulled straight out of nightmares, creatures that didn't belong in the human world at all. They bent reality around them, breaking the rules Charlie once depended on. Sunlight didn't scare them, faith didn't stop them. And then came the worst of them all, the Legion of the Endless Night. Not monsters hiding in the shadows, but people. A secret organization that believed vampires were the future rulers of Earth. They didn't fear the dark. They worshipped it. The Legion didn't just fight Charlie and Peter. They did something far worse. They brought Jerry Dandridge back from the dead. The same predator Charlie thought he'd destroyed. Smarter, angrier, and no longer alone. That's when Charlie realizes the truth. Killing a vampire doesn't end the nightmare. It just teaches the darkness how to come back stronger. Charlie becomes tougher, quieter, sharper. He's not fearless. He's careful. Peter becomes the mentor again. But now the danger is real. Charlie never becomes a full vampire hunter by choice. He does it because someone has to stand between the dark and the people who don't believe, just like he once didn't. Charlie Brewster isn't special. That's the point. He's not chosen. He's not trained. He's not powerful. He's just the kid who looked out the window first and paid the price for telling the truth. Charlie Brewster starts as a horror fan with a bad feeling. He becomes a survivor who learns disbelief is more dangerous than fear. And after the movies, he doesn't escape the darkness. He learns how to face it. Because in the world of Fright Night, monsters don't knock. They move in next door. If you want the full dark origin of Jerry Dandridge, it's waiting on screen right now. Bozworth isn't just Regine's servant. He's proof that some vampires don't start human, and never end human either. Everyone remembers Regine. Some remember Louie. But almost no one asks the right question about Bozworth. Why does he eat bugs? Why does he take pain without reacting? And why does Regine treat him less like a follower and more like property? Tonight, we're uncovering the origins of Bozworth, what he really is, where he came from, and why he may be the most disturbing creature in the entire Fright Night bloodline. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee him. From the moment Bozworth appears, something is off. He doesn't speak much. He doesn't show fear. He doesn't react like a man. He eats live insects without hesitation. He absorbs punishment like it barely registers. He moves with a stiff, unnatural obedience. This isn't madness. This isn't loyalty. This is conditioning. The film quietly shows us that Bozworth exists somewhere between human and monster, the same way Billy Cole did for Jerry Dandridge, which tells us something important. Bozworth wasn't turned the normal way. If you know Fright Night lore, Billy Cole should ring alarms immediately. Billy was not a full vampire. He was something else, a familiar, a thrall, a half-made creature bound to serve. Bozworth fits that exact mold. enhanced strength, reduced pain response, no personal ambition, total submission. These creatures aren't created to rule, they're created to endure. And Regine doesn't treat Bozworth like a partner. She treats him like a tool. So who was Bozworth before the blood? The clues point towards someone already broken. Likely origins suggest a vagrant or outcast, someone with no family ties, someone used to humiliation and control, someone society already treated as less than human. Bozworth didn't lose his identity when he joined Regine. He barely had one to begin with. That made him perfect. Because vampires like Regine don't want servants who think. They want servants who survive. This detail is easy to laugh off, but it's one of the darkest clues in the entire movie. Bug eating isn't about hunger, it's about obedience. In real-world abuse psychology, forcing someone to eat insects is a method of stripping identity and reinforcing dominance. Bozworth eats bugs because he has been trained to accept degradation. He no longer sees himself as human. Pain and disgust no longer trigger resistance. This isn't comic relief. This is ritualized dehumanization. Regine didn't recruit Bozworth. She collected him. Creatures like Bozworth are drawn to powerful predators the way wreckage drifts toward gravity. Regine offered him purpose, protection, structure, survival. In return, she took his name, his will, his future. The blood he was given wasn't enough to make him a lord, just enough to make him useful. Here's the cruel twist. Bozworth is stronger than a normal human, faster, harder to kill, but he will never be free. That's the curse of being more than human, but less than vampire. He can't lead, he can't rebel, he can't evolve. He exists to serve until he breaks. And Regine knows this. That's why she never worries about him turning on her. Bozworth isn't there to fight heroes. He's there to absorb damage, to distract, to suffer, to die if needed. He is the shield that protects Regine from risk. Every time Bozworth steps forward, Regine steps back. That's not loyalty, that's design. Bozworth is a living buffer between Regine and consequences. Bozworth shows us something terrifying about the Fright Night universe. Not all monsters are ambitious. Not all monsters want power. Some monsters are created to be used. Bozworth is what happens when vampirism doesn't elevate you. It erases you. Bozworth isn't tragic because he dies. He's tragic because he lived. No freedom, no voice, no legacy. Just strength without agency. And that might be the darkest fate of all. Watch the next video uncovering the most dangerous creature Regine ever created. Belle never says a word in Fright Night. That silence isn't style, it's a confession. Belle glides through the movie like a ghost on wheels. No dialogue, no emotion, no mercy. Most fans think he's just another strange vampire in Regine's crew. That's the lie. Belle didn't follow Regine. Belle created her. Tonight we're uncovering the true vampire origins of Belle, the silent architect behind Regine, the Dandrige bloodline's most invisible weapon, and one of the most disturbing creatures in the entire Fright Night universe. And by the end of this video, Belle's silence will make perfect sense. Belle stands out immediately in Fright Night Part 2. He never speaks, never shows fear, never challenges Regine, never acts without purpose. He doesn't stalk like Louie. He doesn't show off like Bozworth. He doesn't dominate like Regine. He observes. Belle moves on roller skates, gliding instead of walking. No footsteps, no warning, just motion. That design choice isn't random. Belle is not meant to feel human. He's meant to feel wrong, and that tells us something important. Belle isn't a vampire driven by hunger. He's a vampire shaped by discipline. Belle's behavior is a language of its own. He hunts by confusion, disorientation, visual overload. Victims don't realize they're being hunted. They're distracted, mesmerized, off balance. This makes Belle the perfect scout and lure. And here's the key detail most people miss. Belle is never treated like muscle. He's treated like infrastructure. He's always present, always close to Regine, always watching. That suggests a deep and dark history. In the original Fright Night Part 2 screenplay, Belle wasn't just part of Regine's group. He was the vampire who turned her. That single fact flips the entire power dynamic. If Belle turned Regine, then he predates her authority. He shaped her vampirism. He helped define what she became. So why is he silent? Why is he obedient? To answer that, we have to go back. Far back. Long before Regine became Regina, Calcatura. Belle already existed in the shadows. Belle was likely a court performer, a ritual dancer, a masquerade entertainer, active in late 1400s Central Europe. He survived by disguise, movement, and spectacle. He lived between roles, between identities, between expectations. Belle didn't command rooms. He slipped through them. He learned early that silence keeps you alive. Listening is power. Observation is survival. When the early Dandrige bloodline began experimenting with control, ritual, and hybrid bloodlines, Belle was already useful. So they didn't turn him into a king. They turned him into a tool. Belle became something rare. Not a lord, not a brute, a recruiter. He was sent to find potential, identify restraint, sense emotional instability. That's how he found Regine. She wasn't hunted, she wasn't forced, she was chosen. Belle didn't turn Regine through violence. He turned her through trust, seduction, shared loneliness, emotional mirroring. He approached her as a guide, a protector, someone who understood her restraint. The turning wasn't sudden, it was ceremonial, a controlled ritual blending Belle's perfected vampiric discipline, Regine's unstable hybrid blood, ancient Dandrige control methods. Belle didn't unleash Regine, he finished her. That's why Regine is calm, strategic, controlled. She didn't learn dominance through chaos. She learned it from Belle. After Regine's ascension, Belle's role changed. In vampire hierarchies, the creator often becomes obsolete. Belle survived by doing something radical. He erased himself. No ego, no challenge, no voice. Silence became armor. He didn't rule, he endured. Belle's silence isn't weakness, it's survival. And each character that is part of Regine's crew serves a purpose. Regine equals control, Louie equals force, Bozworth equals chaos. Belle equals infiltration. Belle is the scout, the lure, the executioner in quiet spaces. He doesn't scare victims, he makes them unsure. And confusion is deadlier than fear. Belle is destroyed with a red holy cloth. That matters. Red means blood. Holy cloth means exposure. A creature built on disguise cannot survive being seen. Belle doesn't scream, because Belle has been silent for centuries. His death is total erasure. Identity lost, form lost, self gone. Belle proves something terrifying about the Fright Night universe. Not all monsters roar, not all predators chase, some glide. Belle isn't tragic like Evil Ed, not aggressive like Louie, not dominant like Regine. Belle is what happens when survival erases identity completely. And that makes him one of the most dangerous vampires of all. Watch the next video uncovering the darkest secrets of the Fright Night bloodline. Remember that death scene of Evil Ed in Fright Night? The vampire dying in that horrific wolf form. Well, he was not the only one of his kind. Tonight, we're diving into one of the strangest creatures in the entire Fright Night universe. The wolf-shifting vampire known as Louie. He's not a full werewolf. He's not a normal vampire. He sits somewhere in a twisted middle ground created by a rare mutation few undead ever survive. To understand what he is and how he connects to Evil Ed, we need to go back, trace the mutation itself, and uncover how Louie became the monster he is in Fright Night Part 2. Vampires in Fright Night don't follow the classic Dracula rules. They evolve, they adapt, and sometimes the change breaks them from the inside. A tiny percentage of freshly turned vampires develop something the hunters used to call an unstable form. A monstrous shape tied to their strongest emotion at the time of transformation. For most, that emotion is fear. That's why Evil Ed's final form twisted into a wolf, a cornered animal lashing out. But here's the thing. Most vampires only get that form once. Their bodies can't handle the shift again. Bones snap wrong, minds fracture, they burn themselves out and die within hours. Louie? He didn't die, he adapted. Before becoming a vampire, Louie was a street-level hustler drifting through late 70s and early 80s Los Angeles. A guy who bounced between biker bars, underground boxing rings, and punk clubs. He lived like a stray dog, always hungry, always alert, always ready to fight for scraps. He trusted nobody, he bowed to nobody, and he survived every beating life threw at him. So when a vampire finally cornered him in a back alley behind a dive club, that same survival instinct exploded through him at the moment of the bite. And that's where his mutation started. When a vampire turns someone, their strongest trait becomes the foundation of their undead identity. For Louie, that trait wasn't fear, it wasn't panic, it was aggression, pure animal aggression. His body didn't want to run, it wanted to tear the world apart. So while others mutate into unstable wolf shapes out of terror, Louie mutated because he was a wolf long before he grew fangs. But here's the difference. Evil Ed's wolf form was chaotic and full of a pain. Louie's, it was controlled, balanced, like his body accepted the mutation instead of fighting it. This made him extremely rare. A vampire whose wolf form didn't collapse his body, but enhanced it. Regine didn't surround herself with random monsters. Every creature she brought into her crew had a purpose. Bozworth was her distraction. Belle was her seduction. And Louie? Louie was her blunt instrument. She saw immediately what he was. Not a hybrid, not a werewolf, but a vampire with near-perfect shape-shifting stability. His bone structure could break and rebuild without killing him. His senses sharpened far beyond normal vampire thresholds. Regine didn't just recruit Louie, she weaponized him. He became the perfect tool for the cheap, silent kills, infiltration, intimidation, ambush attacks. Louie wasn't loyal to her because she turned him. He was loyal because she finally gave him something he never had: control. Let's break down why Louie is so different from Evil Ed. When Ed transformed, his wolf form was a panic response, an unstable burst of borrowed power. But Louie's mutation likely stems from three key things. His biology at the moment of turning people with extremely high adrenaline and high aggression often mutate more intensely. His emotional identity, Louie lived his whole life like a feral animal. The mutation didn't change him. It revealed him, his acceptance of the vampire curse. Most people break mentally when they turn. Louie didn't. He was already broken in the way vampires need. So instead of his wolf form tearing him apart, it fused with him. That's why he can shift multiple times without dying, and why his form is so terrifying. Evil Ed was tragic, a kid who turned out of loneliness and fear. His wolf form was a dying scream. Louie? Louie is evolution. The mutation actually empowered him. Ed's body tried to hold two shapes at once. Louie's body became two shapes. Ed's shift was a curse. Louie's shift is a weapon. This is why Regine trusted him as her shock trooper, and why he's one of the most dangerous vampires in the entire franchise. Even with all that power, Louie had one fatal flaw. He still fought like a man. He relied on brute strength instead of vampire instinct. He used intimidation instead of strategy. And when anyone fights like a predictable animal, they die like one. Louie's final moments show it perfectly. That's why he's defeated. Not because he's weak, but because he never learned to stop fighting the world like it was still the alley behind a club in Los Angeles. Louie proves something huge about vampire biology in this universe. Shapeshifting isn't random. It isn't magic. It's emotional identity made physical. He is living evidence that vampires can evolve new forms, that the curse adapts to the mind, and that in the right circumstances, a vampire can unlock monstrous abilities far beyond the original bloodline. Louie is the answer to a question the movie quietly asks. What happens when a vampire doesn't become a monster out of fear, but out of instinct? Louie is the answer, a controlled mutation, a stabilized wolf, a predator that never needed the moon, only the hunger. Louie isn't a hybrid. He isn't a werewolf. He isn't a traditional vampire. He's a mutation, a living example of what happens when the vampire curse fuses perfectly with the darkest parts of someone's identity. His story connects the dots between Evil Ed, Regine's army, and the wider lore of Fright Night, proving that evolution inside this universe is far more terrifying than we ever saw on screen. Watch the next video unraveling the hidden origins inside the Fright Night universe. Regine Dandridge didn't just appear out of nowhere. She wasn't simply Jerry's sister. She wasn't even fully human by the time we met her. Long before she walked into America as a glamorous celebrity, Regine lived under another name, one whispered in medieval Balkan villages with fear: Regina Chelkatura, the half-blood widow. Her transformation began with betrayal, ancient warfare, and a forbidden ritual that even the Dandrige bloodline tried to erase. Tonight, we're uncovering the evolution of one of horror's most misunderstood vampires, a predator shaped by tragedy, resurrected by rage, and reborn into an elite monster unlike anything the Fright Night universe ever showed us. This is the true origin story of Regine, Jerry's sister, and possibly his greatest rival. Regine Dandridge only appears briefly in the Fright Night universe, yet her impact is massive. She's intelligent, strategic, seductive, and far more controlled than Jerry ever was. But there's a reason for that. She's older, more ancient, and more disciplined. The film hints at her connection to Jerry, but it never explains the deeper bond or how she became one of the most powerful vampires in horror canon. So, to understand Regine, we need to go back 600 years, to a night of war, blood, and betrayal. The year is 1445. The Balkans are torn apart by conflict. Villages burn, families flee. Among them is a young woman named Regine, known for her intelligence, her beauty, and her fierce loyalty to her family. Her older brother Gellert fights to protect what's left of them. But one night, everything collapses. Soldiers raiding under the banner of Vlad's warlords capture Regine. She's taken to a stone fortress, a place rumored to house a hidden sect of vampires who fed on prisoners to strengthen their unholy militia. There, she meets the creature who changes her destiny, the first Dandrige, a vampire elder whose bloodline would later give birth to Jerry. The elder takes Regine as a gift, slowly feeding on her over days, until Gellert finds her, barely alive. What he does next breaks every rule of vampire folklore. Instead of letting Regine die, Gellert performs an ancient, forbidden ritual he stole from the fortress's archives, one that could merge weakened human blood with vampire essence. But the ritual wasn't meant for the dying. It was meant to create something new, a hybrid. Regine awakens changed, not fully vampire, not fully human, a creature with heightened psychic sensitivity, stronger resistance to sunlight, slower blood dependency, and an unnatural emotional awareness. She is the first hybrid of the Dandrige lineage, created from stolen lore. This is the beginning of the Dandrige curse. Regine and Gellert flee, but the vampire elder pursues them relentlessly, not because Regine escaped, but because the ritual she underwent could create an unstoppable new breed. After weeks on the run, Gellert sacrifices himself in a final confrontation, and Regine disappears into legend. But she doesn't die. She evolves. For the next 200 years, Regine changes identities, infiltrating royal courts and rising through early European society. Her hybrid nature lets her do what most vampires cannot: blend in completely, influence powerful families, shape politics from the shadows. She becomes a master of psychological feeding, drawing strength from fear, desire, and obsession, rather than just blood. By the 1700s, she takes on the name Regine, reinventing herself for the growing world of culture, theatre, and early celebrity. But time eventually reconnects the bloodline. She encounters another Dandridge descendant, Jerry, not as siblings, not yet, but as two creatures born from the same corrupted lineage, drawn to each other like gravity. Jerry senses something in her, something familiar, the hybrid curse he himself inherited generations later. Their bond grows, but it fractures violently in the 1800s when Regine realizes Jerry's uncontrolled appetite threatens to expose their lineage. She leaves him behind, breaking the one connection she ever allowed herself to have. By the time we reach the modern Fright Night era, Regine is no longer Regine, no longer the girl who almost died in a fortress. no longer the hybrid experiment. She has become the perfect predator, elegant, culturally blended, fully aware of human psychology, and terrifyingly patient. She watches Jerry from afar as he attempts to blend into suburban America. But when Jerry dies, something inside her snaps. The ritual that created her, the hybrid curse, awakens a violent, vengeful energy. She returns not just to avenge Jerry, but to reclaim dominance over the only surviving thread of her ancient bloodline. Her transformation sequence we see in the film, it's not a performance, it's a rebirth. The hybrid emerging at full power. Regine wasn't hunting, Regine was ascending. Jerry was powerful, yes, seductive, aggressive, dangerous. But Regine? She's something else entirely. Jerry is a vampire, Regine is evolution. The hybrid curse grants her adaptive feeding strategies, higher mental control, long-term planning, multi-generational memory, and most importantly, Regine remembers everything she lost. Her family, her brother, her humanity. Jerry killed out of instinct. Regine kills out of purpose. That's what makes her terrifying. She's not a monster driven by hunger. She's a strategist sculpted by centuries of pain, who learned to weaponize heartbreak. Regine Dandridge isn't just Jerry's sister. She's the first hybrid of the Dandrige bloodline, created through forbidden ritual, forged by war, refined by centuries, and unleashed into modern society with unmatched precision. Her story is not about seduction or glamour. It's about survival, evolution, and vengeance that spans generations. She isn't just an antagonist. She's the missing puzzle piece of the entire Fright Night mythology. If you'd like to see Jerry's hidden origin, Evil Ed's secret comeback, or the entire Dandrige bloodline history, drop your requests in the comments below. And if you enjoyed diving into this darker version of the Fright Night universe, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and join us next time as we uncover more lost, forgotten, and forbidden horror origins. Only here on Horror Unfold.
That is why they call me the Great Vampire Killer.
What if the greatest vampire hunter of the 80s wasn't a hero, but a terrified child actor running from his past? And what if every Peter Vincent movie you saw was actually a lie covering up real monsters? Tonight we dig into the true story the films never showed you. Because Peter Vincent wasn't born a fearless vampire killer. He was born Herbert McCooley, a kid thrown into the spotlight, fed to Hollywood, and later hunted by real creatures hiding in the dark. And the deeper you go into his history, the more you realize. Peter Vincent didn't just act in horror movies, he lived them. And some of them followed him long after the credits roll. So let's trace his full life, from child actor to washed-up TV host, to real supernatural hunter trying to survive the monsters that kept coming back. Peter Vincent began as a shy kid with a name nobody could pronounce, Herbert McCooley. At just 8 years old, he was pushed into show business. His breakout role? A disturbing little thriller called Murder in the Family, where he played a child killer. Imagine that. Your first job in life is pretending to murder people. That kind of thing sticks to you. And it stuck to Herbert. He had one brother who later joined a secret branch of the government. His brother would go on to uncover things that weren't meant for human eyes. And Herbert would one day run right into them. But for now, Herbert was just a kid actor trying to survive Hollywood. By his early 20s, Herbert's acting career hit the same wall most child stars hit. Cute kid becomes awkward adult. Producers stop calling. His name fades out. But then he auditioned for a small vampire movie called Fingers of Fear. And the studio made one move that changed his life forever. They renamed him Peter, after Peter Cushing, Vincent, after Vincent Price. A name that sounded like it belonged on old horror posters. And they didn't just cast him as a vampire killer. They sold him to the world as if he actually was one. That lie worked. Fingers of Fear hit big. And for the next 25 years, Peter Vincent became a legend of B-movie horror. Blood Castle, Jaws of the Vampire, Creatures from Carpathia, Vampire Virgins, and at least 20 more titles that played on late-night TV and drive-ins nobody remembers anymore. He became a face people knew, but never fully respected. He wasn't Vincent Price. He wasn't Christopher Lee. He was the cheap version, but he made it work. Until horror changed. The 1970s hit horror like a hammer. Slasher movies took over. The old gothic vampire stories were dead, at least to the studios. The roles stopped. The calls stopped. And Peter Vincent couldn't get arrested, let alone hired. By the 80s, he was broke. Not struggling broke, like selling his own props just to eat. Broke. This is where most stories end. But Peter wasn't done yet. He came up with a plan. If Hollywood didn't want him, he'd make his own stage. He bought the rights to show his old movies, found cheap TV stations in tiny towns, and started hosting a late-night creature feature called Fright Night, where he introduced his own films like he was some king of the undead world. His show would air in places like Podunk for 6 months. Then he'd move on to Pigeon Forge, then somewhere else, like a traveling vampire salesman. It was sad, but it kept him alive. And then came the night that changed everything. When Peter took his show to Iowa, he expected another dead-end gig. Instead, he met Charlie Brewster, a teenager claiming his neighbor was a vampire. Peter laughed. Of course he laughed. He'd spent his entire life pretending to be a vampire killer. He knew the tricks, the makeup, the Hollywood illusions. Real vampires didn't exist. Until Jerry Dandridge walked into the room. Jerry wasn't a fan. He wasn't a critic. He was a centuries-old predator sizing up his next meal. And for the first time, Peter's entire persona cracked. He realized his whole career was built on a lie. But the monster in front of him wasn't pretending. Everyone remembers this part from the movie, because surviving Jerry wasn't the end. It was step one. After the first movie, Peter Vincent and Charlie become actual monster hunters. Not part-time, not accidental, full-time. And the threats they face go way beyond Jerry. They face Regine Dandridge, Jerry's sister, a sadistic vampire who wanted revenge for her brother's death. She didn't just try to kill Peter, she tried to break him. Mind games, psychological torture, and in the comics, it leaves deep scars on him. Then came the Spider Boy, a twisted half-human creature. Then the brain bats, flying parasites that fed on thoughts. Then the squid men, eldritch monsters pulled out of nightmares, and the worst of them all, the Legion of the Endless Night, a secret organization that believed vampires were the future rulers of Earth. They didn't just fight Peter and Charlie. They resurrected Jerry Dandridge. And with Jerry back from the dead, Peter Vincent realized something terrifying. You can kill a monster, but some monsters don't stay dead. Peter spent his entire life fighting to be seen. A child actor, a washed-up hero, a forgotten host. But the supernatural world saw him clearly. It knew his name. It hunted him. It followed him from town to town. The challenge he faced wasn't killing vampires. It was surviving his own fear. In the comics, Peter becomes braver, but also more broken. He tries returning to Hollywood. Nobody cares. He tries to reboot his show. Nobody watches. The only place he ever mattered was in the shadows, standing between humans and creatures that wanted to feed on them. That became his life. Not fame, not applause, purpose. By the end of all his battles, something strange happens. Peter stops playing the role. The cape, the props, the ego. They were masks. But the real man was someone who still showed up even when he was terrified. Someone who hunted monsters even when the world laughed at him. Someone who kept fighting. Because if he didn't, no one else would. The movies showed you a joke, a washed-up actor. Peter Vincent became the thing he pretended to be, a real vampire killer. Peter Vincent's life wasn't about fame, it was about fear, and what he did with that fear. A child actor shaped by horror, a forgotten host haunted by his own lies. And finally, a man who found meaning in the one place nobody expected, killing monsters that were very, very real. His movies made him a character. His battles made him a legend. Watch the next video to go deeper into the Fright Night universe. To understand who Amy truly is in Fright Night, we have to go back. Not years, not decades, but centuries. Back to a time before Jerry became a monster, before he tasted blood, before he cursed God himself. Because Amy's origins don't begin in the 1980s. They began the same way as Dracula's first and most tragic bride, Elisabetta, the woman whose death shattered Jerry's sanity, ignited his rage against heaven, and set in motion a curse that would echo across generations, eventually landing on an unsuspecting girl named Amy Peterson. To understand Amy, we need to start long before she was ever born, long before Jerry Dandridge, long before modern vampires, before fangs, coffins, or crucifixes, before he was a monster. Before he drank blood, he knew love. And that love was Maria. Maria was to Jerry, same way Elisabetta was to Dracula. Legend says she was gentle, bright, and loyal. The one person who kept Jerry grounded. But during a brutal war, she received a false message telling her Jerry had died. In grief, she threw herself from the castle walls. And when Jerry returned and saw her body, something inside him broke. He cursed God. He cursed heaven. And in that moment of rage, sorrow, and defiance, he damned himself and all future brides to the curse of vampirism. This is the moment the curse begins. And this is where Amy's true story secretly starts. After Maria's death, Jerry spent centuries trying to replace her. His brides all had one thing in common. They looked like her. They acted like her. They carried the same spiritual echo. It's a pattern vampires are known for in folklore. Hunting souls that resemble a past love. Trying to reclaim what was taken. Now remember that when we talk about Amy, because in Fright Night, Jerry doesn't pick her at random. He reacts to her in the exact same way Dracula reacts to Mina in the 1992 film. Not with hunger, but with recognition. A soul he knew once, a soul he lost, a soul that returned. Let's break this down. In the movie, Jerry sees Amy's picture. One look, and everything changes. He freezes. His expression softens. He speaks to her differently than anyone else. He isn't hunting her. He's drawn to her. This is not vampire picking next target. This is vampire finding the reincarnation of the bride he's been searching for. Amy doesn't just resemble Maria. She is Maria reborn. That explains Jerry's behavior. He approaches her gently. He comforts her. He dances with her like he's reliving a memory centuries old. He turns her slowly, almost lovingly. Not with violence, but ritual. Jerry isn't creating a new vampire. He's trying to restore the one he lost. And Amy, even before turning, reacts to him with fear, mixed with a strange familiarity, like she's remembering something she shouldn't. Now let's talk about what happened when Jerry bit her. Her eyes change, her face shifts, and for a moment, she doesn't look like Amy at all. She looks like someone else. This is key. The curse doesn't just turn her into a vampire. It awakens the soul that's been trapped inside her for lifetimes. Maria returns. This is why Jerry protects her afterward. It's why he shields her from Charlie and Peter Vincent. To him, Amy isn't a new victim. She's the love he lost, the bride who died in his arms centuries ago. After Jerry's death, Amy returns to human form. But here's the part nobody talks about. Curing vampirism only removes the curse from the body, not the soul. Meaning, the vampiric part of her fades, but the ancient part, Maria, stays. And Amy starts to feel things she can't explain. Dreams of castles she's never seen. Memories of a man she never met. A fear of mirrors. A strange sadness she can't shake. A pull toward darkness that never goes away. She doesn't understand it. And Charlie definitely can't handle it. This leads to the next part of her story. On the surface, Charlie and Amy look fine at the end of the movie. But psychologically, Amy is falling apart. She's dealing with trauma from the bite, the transformation, a near loss of her soul, and memories she never lived. Every time she looks at Charlie, she remembers the worst night of her life. She remembers the hunger, the fear, and the ancient voice inside her whispering things she doesn't want to hear. Charlie becomes a reminder of the curse, not safety. That kind of pressure destroys any connection. Their breakup wasn't because the sequel forgot her. It was because Amy was losing her grip on who she was. Here's the darkest part. Amy didn't just break up with Charlie. She disappeared because those memories, those flashes of Maria's life, started to grow stronger, and she became a danger to herself and anyone around her. Some lore suggests the church warned her she was marked. She felt Jerry's presence even after death. She feared he wasn't fully gone. She feared Maria was waking up again. So she left. No goodbye. No explanation. She ran from the curse before it could claim her again. Now here's the final twist. If Amy carries Maria's soul, then Jerry's essence may still be tied to her. That means, if she lives, Jerry lives, even in fragments. It explains the strange shadow she sees, the voice she hears in dreams, the feeling that someone is always watching. Jerry wasn't hunting Amy. He was returning to her. And if her soul is awakened again, he might return too. Amy Peterson wasn't just a girlfriend caught in a vampire fight. She was the final chapter in a love story that began centuries earlier. A tragedy born from Maria's death and Jerry's curse. Same as what Elisabetta was to Dracula. Jerry wasn't obsessed with her because she was young or innocent. He knew her. He remembered her. And he wanted her back. And after the movie ended, Amy's story didn't stop. It just got darker. Watch the next video. You don't want to miss what comes next. Ever notice how Billy from Fright Night dies like no human, but doesn't act like a vampire? Tonight, we dig into the creature Jerry created, the servant who shouldn't exist. Billy Cole is one of the biggest mysteries in Fright Night. He walks in the sun like a human, survives bullets like a zombie, melts like a creature made in a lab. The movie never says what he is, but the clues are all there. And when you follow those clues back far enough, they lead to one night in one city, where Billy stopped being human and became something far darker. This is the hidden origin of Billy, and why Jerry Dandridge kept him closer than any vampire would dare. Billy appears the same way nightmares do. Quiet, familiar, wrong. He carries Jerry's coffin. He stares down Charlie without blinking. He protects Jerry from the police, like he's trained to hide monsters. But it's his death scene that gives the real secret away. He gets shot in the face, gets up like nothing happened, starts melting into green slime, then into a skeleton, then turns into sand. No vampire dies like that. No human survives like that. So what actually happened to Billy? Who was he before all this? And how did Jerry make him into this thing? To answer that, we need to go back to the one place where monsters blend into the crowd. New Orleans, 1938. Picture this. A storm tearing through the New Orleans docks. Ships creaking like old bones. Thunder so loud it rattles the rust off the steel. Billy is working the night shift. A dock worker with hands like bricks and a body built from hauling crates since he was 12. He's tough, loyal, stubborn, and always the last one to leave. He's rolling a shipment into a cold storage room when he hears it. A crate falling, sliding, splitting open. Billy thinks it's just another coffin. New Orleans ships those constantly. But this one is wrong. It's filled with dirt, grave dirt, black as oil, ice cold, smelling like old blood. Billy leans in with a crowbar, and a pale hand shoots out and grabs his wrist. Jerry Dandridge climbs out of the crate like a nightmare waking up from the earth. Not hungry, not angry, just amused. Billy doesn't scream. Jerry notices that. Most people beg. Billy squares his shoulders like a boxer in a ring, still believing he can fight something that isn't even breathing. And that's the moment Jerry decides, this one could be useful. Jerry doesn't kill Billy outright. He doesn't even turn him the normal way. Instead, he gives Billy one slow, deliberate bite. A bite designed to break a man, not remake him. And here's the part Fright Night never explains, but the evidence screams it. Vampires can make more than vampires. If they drain you too far, if they feed you just enough venom to twist your blood, if they interrupt the turning at the exact moment your life slips away. You don't wake up as a vampire. You wake up as something trapped between two worlds, Not alive, not dead, just claimed. A ghoul, a revenant, a body held together by the will of the creature that made you. Jerry's venom doesn't transform Billy. It poisons him. It stops the change halfway, freezes it in place, and lets Billy's human life flicker out like a dying bulb. And that could have been the end. But Jerry isn't done. This is where all the construct theory comes into play. It says Jerry didn't just corrupt Billy, he reanimated him. Billy's body dies on that dock floor, and Jerry drags him back from death, using a mix of vampiric venom and old forbidden magic that only ancient vampires remember. That's why Billy bleeds green. That's why he melts into sludge. That's why he collapses into sand and bone when Jerry's power slips. He's not a servant. He's not a vampire. He's not even a man. He's a constructed guardian, a revenant built for one purpose, to live only as long as Jerry lives, and to fall apart the moment Jerry lets him go. Billy wakes up on the dock floor hours later, skin cold, pulse faint, head pounding like someone rewired his brain with iron nails. Jerry is sitting on a broken crate, watching. Billy tries to speak, but his throat only spits green fluid. Jerry smiles, almost proud. Billy tries to stand. He stands too easily, too strong, too fast. He's not human anymore, but he's not a vampire. He walks in daylight now, but it burns inside his bones. He bleeds green. He doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. He obeys Jerry without questioning why. It isn't hypnosis. It's the venom. It sits in his bloodstream like hot tar, rewiring everything he is. Billy becomes the one thing Jerry needs most. A daytime guardian. A loyal corpse that thinks. A servant who won't die unless Jerry dies first. And someone strong enough to snap a man in half if Jerry whispers the order. But being half dead comes with a secret cost. Billy's body is never stable. He's always rotting a little, always leaking something thick and green in the dark, always one mistake, away from melting into sludge. He can only stay alive, because Jerry is alive. When Jerry sleeps, Billy feels it. His bones soften, his skin gets cold, his heartbeat slows to a crawl. He is literally held together by Jerry's existence. Break Jerry, and Billy falls apart. That's why he protects Jerry with such blind devotion. It's not loyalty, it's survival. For decades, Billy follows Jerry across the country big cities, small towns, places where people won't notice bodies missing or coffins being delivered at 3 a.m. By the time they reach Charlie Brewster's neighborhood, Billy has been undead for almost 50 years. He knows the routine. Find the quiet house, unpack the coffin, handle the daylight hours, clean up the mess. To the neighbors, he's just a tall, quiet roommate. To Jerry, he's the perfect monster. Strong enough to kill a man with one arm. Dead enough to ignore pain. Human enough to hide in plain sight, but just broken enough to never rebel. When Charlie and Peter break into the house, Billy doesn't hesitate. He goes straight for them. No fear, no hesitation, no soul. Peter shoots him point blank in the head. Billy drops, gets up, keeps coming. That's not immortality. That's a meat puppet stitched together by dark magic. When Charlie finally drives the wood through Billy's chest, the spell holding his body together collapses. The green fluid pours out. His skin melts like wax in fire. Flesh turns to sludge. Sludge turns to sand. Sand leaves nothing but a skeleton. And for the first time all movie, Billy seems afraid. Because Billy wasn't a monster by choice. He was a man who opened the wrong crate on the wrong night and became Jerry's shadow. So who was Billy Cole? Not a vampire, not a human, not a zombie. He was Jerry Dandridge's creation, a half-turned undead servant engineered through venom, death and control. A creature made to protect a vampire and doomed the moment he lost him. Watch the next video on your screen to uncover more dark hidden horrors from your favorite 80s cult classic horror movies.